Okay. Everything should be ready. Everything should be fine. It is the top of the hour. It is 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And we are here to talk about weather. Now, for real, it is November 8th, 2022. Hopefully, I will be starting to do this, I should say, schedule of me streaming on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Thursday, I'm not sure if I can, but who knows? I guess we'll just have to see. But Tuesday, we are going to be live. 9 times out of 10, every single Tuesday, we probably will be live. So this is just kind of an overview, more or less, as to what exactly could happen, more or less. So let us talk first things first about the tropics, because even though we're in November, I mean, weather just does not know when to quit. You know, it took its break from August and September all the way through into October, and then finally November. You know, we have severe weather that happened a few days ago. Now we have a whole tropical storm and more severe weather. And then, you know, to add further to its identity crisis, we also have another winter storm that is posed to make a threat for the northern portions of the United States. So we might as well get to all of it. We might as well talk about all of it. And so here we go. We have subtropical storm Nicole as of right now. You can see, or it's actually tropical storm Nicole as of this point. But there is tropical storm Nicole just to the east of the peninsula of Florida. You can see here's the outline of the United States as it moved about. And then you can see this giant counterclockwise swirl right within there. We also have a high pressure system over here across New England. This is kind of creating a lot of clockwise flow here, which is also going to kind of hint towards some severe weather across portions of the central United States, as another trough will dig down through, and that'll aid to that wind shear across portions of the central United States. But let's talk a bit further about Nicole here. And you can take a look at the infrared satellite, and it doesn't really look all too nice. Typically, you want more vibrant colors across the board, and that isn't exactly the case. However, you do have some spin, some low pressure right within here, and reconnaissance has actually found that we do have a well-defined area of low pressure right in the center, and the actual pressure in itself is about 984 millibars, with some winds just below hurricane force at about 60 to 64 knots. So that is something to note, probably about a 70-mile-per-hour tropical storm. And it is expected to continue to get very, very close towards the Bahamas here, at least the northern portions of the Bahamas. So definitely something to make a note of. But the other thing that I want to actually make a note of here is you notice how bare the actual thunderstorms are on the eastern side. And granted, even though we're expected to see some more of that activity, we still have the lack of thunderstorms to really make this your classic tropical storm, or even hurricane for that matter. But nevertheless, you still see how fast it is spinning and how it is rotating, and so therefore it does have a closed low, and it is a tropical system. Now we can go ahead and move over to our forecast cone here for the next 5 days. You notice that the National Hurricane Center has actually notified that it actually has intensified here, and is now has a maximum sustained wind of about 65 miles per hour, with movement west-southwest at 10 miles per hour. Now, you can see that they actually forecast for this to become a hurricane as soon as it gets over the Bahamas, right on its approach, actually, right before it gets to the Bahamas, before it continues to make its journey towards the peninsula of Florida, before it eventually goes overland and then turns across and parallels the East Coast overland. Now, the actual intensity of this hurricane as it makes its approach towards Florida, it doesn't really matter all too much, because you notice here that regardless if it becomes a tropical storm or a hurricane, you guys see this giant yellow outliner right here. And this is the actual wind field of your tropical storm force winds. And this is very large. This actually, if we were to move this entire yellow field over the entire state of Florida, it would cover it all up. And so this is a very wide wind field here in regards to this tropical system. And because of that, this could actually create some very widespread impacts of down trees and power lines across the board in Florida. Now, this isn't going to be a major Hurricane Ian type effect. However, this is still going to linger throughout much of the area, bring some rainfall, of course, some tornadoes, and maybe even some local power outages. Here's the local arrival time for the tropical storm force winds. You notice that here, right about now, the tropical storm force winds are expected to approach the Bahamas. But as we get closer and closer towards Florida, sometime around Wednesday morning at around 8 a.m., you can see the line right within that area is when some of the tropical storm force winds is expected to reach the coastline. But by about, I would say, noon is when the actual coastline, the entire coastline of Florida, could actually see the effects of Tropical Storm Nicole and then Hurricane Nicole to actually reach its area. Of course, by the time we get towards Thursday morning, that is when we actually start to see the tropical storm force winds start to move further north and surge that way, into which then by Thursday through Friday, it will start to march its way across steadily off towards the north and east. We can take a look at some of the rainfall predicted by the Weather Prediction Center, and we note that there is not terribly too much rain anticipated with this storm due to the lack of thunderstorms. However, the coastline here, you can see on the eastern coastline of Florida, particularly from Daytona Beach all the way down towards Orlando, Melbourne, and then down towards Palm Beach, we have about 4 to 6 inches of rain possible within that yellow area. But then as it continues to move off towards the north and east, it starts to lose a lot of its moisture and therefore starts to kind of wither away and becomes more of a kind of damaging wind maker as well as a local tornado threat. That might actually be a sleeper event as that continues to move off towards the north and east. Storm surge, however, due to the fact that the wind field is so large, you can notice that the storm surge is probably going to be very much so widespread. You notice that from here near the Palm Beach areas as well as areas north of Miami, you have 2 to 4 feet of storm surge before you get from the North Palm Beach area towards the Space Coast and all the way towards the Altamaha Sound. You start to get to the 3 to 5 feet of storm surge range, which is kind of where the primary threat is going to be. Once again, this is just a reminder for anyone who gets impacted by a tropical storm or any sort of tropical system for that matter. The worst impacts of a tropical system will always be to where the winds are actually rushing ashore. And so if we take a look at the counterclockwise spin of a tropical system, you notice that wherever the winds are moving ashore, that is where it's going to be the strongest. So on the northern side of wherever that eye will actually land, whether it does have a well-defined eye or not, it'll probably be just a well-defined area of low pressure, a center of circulation, if you will. The northern side of this low pressure system will actually be the one to really impact the coastline. And so basically areas from the Space Coast all the way up towards Jacksonville, once again, all the way up along the coastline of Georgia and even towards the South Santee River areas of South Carolina, they could particularly see some storm surge here due to the fact that you have a lot of flow that is going to surge across into the coastline here. On the other hand, you also see some areas of storm surge down here from the Indian Pass areas all the way down towards Tampa Bay. The only reason for that is because once the low pressure system actually starts to march further and curl off towards the north in towards areas near Georgia, let's circle back to our counterclockwise flow once again. And you notice the flow is actually going to be coming from the water inland across portions of the Big Bend of Florida. So that's the reason why 2 to 4 feet of storm surge is also possible here from the Big Bend of Florida all the way down towards Tampa Bay. We'll also take a look here real quickly at the specifics for where our storm surge could actually be. And according to the National Hurricane Center with its experimental storm surge map, you notice that once you get further and further north from Palm Coast all the way up towards Jacksonville, that is where your flooding is really going to actually occur, especially with our storm surge. And you notice once we get towards the closer areas of the coast, particularly near St. Mary, that is where you could potentially see some storm surge, as well as some of the barrier islands here heading off towards Brunswick and even further off towards Savannah. So that'll be something to watch out for here. Areas along the east coast of the United States, particularly from the Space Coast over here, all the way up along towards Palm Coast, Jacksonville, Daytona Beach as well, down further south, and then all the way up towards the areas of South Carolina and North Carolina. On the other hand, we take a look at the Big Bend. You see here from Spring Hill, Florida, all the way down to Homosassa Springs. Geez, I can't speak to save my life here. And then all the way through towards the Big Bend and then south of Tallahassee. You can see storm surge is also possible within these areas too, due to the fact that, once again, you have a lot of that flow that's going to be surging back inland from the west to the east. So just something to make a note of here as we continue to march across. So now, since we talked about that, let's take a look at the models here, and we'll actually kind of shift towards this Western Atlantic frame just to kind of see as to what exactly we're looking at specifically. We notice here on the GFS model, here is Nicole, and you notice that as this continues to progress, it follows a similar path, a bit west-southwest, as the National Hurricane Center has kind of noted as of right now, before it starts to kind of curl off towards the north. And you'll see that with the GFS, the curl can start by any time from Wednesday night into Thursday morning. It could potentially even get back over sea, over the Gulf of Mexico, before it actually makes a second landfall off towards the Apalachicola areas, and then it starts to shift off towards the north and east and impact the mid-Atlantic and all those areas. Now, a big thing here to make a note of is that if we start back at the beginning, we take a look at where Nicole is currently situated right now. We noted that there wasn't a whole lot of thunderstorms on the eastern and southeastern sides, and that is because if we take a look at the relative humidity, you notice there's actually a lot of dry air located within this area. You see all of this dry air, even is situated even south of it and further into the Gulf of Mexico, where there's a lot of high relative humidity here on the western and northern sides, as well as extreme eastern sides. If it can get through that dry band, that could potentially help this thing intensify further. And what the GFS actually says is that will indeed be the case. This thing will continue to try and take from this kind of moist plume of air over here south of Bermuda and kind of feed the storm a little bit more. So that is one thing to note. We do have a plethora of moisture for the storm to go off of, but not enough for it to rapidly intensify. So if anyone was worried about this thing to become a category 3, 4, or 5 hurricane as it approached Florida, it is very highly unlikely due to the fact that we have so much dry air located within the system that it is not likely for it to organize enough in time, even if there was very favorable factors in this environment. Now, if I were to actually quickly look over here to try and see how much ocean heat content there is within this environment, let's take a look at the northern Atlantic and try to see how much upper ocean heat content there is across portions of Bermuda, or the Bahamas, all the way up to Bermuda and even the Gulf Stream. There is a slight tad bit of it over here, enough for it to basically upwell that warm water and try to allow it to get more thunderstorms. And what ocean heat content basically is when the ocean heats up, the ocean basically is, the sun shines on it and the top part of the ocean actually warms up, if you will, right? Well, what ocean heat content actually looks at is the amount of energy there is within that warm water. So how far deep the water actually goes in towards to where it can actually still maintain that heat that it gives off of in order for thunderstorms to kind of form off within that environment. So basically, long story short, the deeper the warm water is, the more heat it actually gives off of, which allows these thunderstorms to continue to form, sustain, and even aid tropical development. So we do have a little bit of ocean heat content within that area to try and help promote some thunderstorms to actually form. Now, I do want to also take a look here real quickly at some of the wind shear that this thing is going to try and deal with. If I actually take a look a little bit at the 500 vorticity wind, this might actually help me a little bit. And it actually does, ever so slightly, but it actually does. We have a mid-level high pressure system right within here. You can see our wind barbs is moving clockwise, right like this. And these wind barbs are actually going to kind of push this system a bit further off towards the south and west, kind of like what it's doing right now. As this continues to progress, however, this high pressure system is going to shift. You see, it starts to move this way. The wind barbs are now spinning kind of like that, and a trough is going to kind of dig through here across portions of the central United States around the time frame of Thursday into Friday, which we will talk about that in a bit with our severe weather. So basically our high pressure system moves over, and now our steering flow is moving from east to west. So now our system is moving this way. Now, as we progress from Thursday morning into Thursday evening and Friday, here is our high pressure system right now. It's a lot weaker, and we even have another high pressure system that's forming over here. So maybe even a very elongated high pressure system, or two different high pressure systems that are trying to form over here. Our flow, instead of it moving from east to west, it is now moving from south to north. And so we have a lot of flow that's going to be pushing this tropical system very far off to the north, aided by the fact that there is a giant trough that's moving through the central United States, which is going to also nudge this thing across towards New England. And that's the reason why this thing is going to start to turn off and parallel up the coast. Now, another thing that I also want to take a look at here real quickly is I want to make a note. I want to move our sector actually towards just the continental United States. This will actually help here in what exactly we're looking at in particular. And I also want to take a look at the 700 millibar vorticity and wind shear. And so here, once again, we have Nicole. Nicole is now going to start to move off towards the north. You see we have our lower level high pressure that is off near Bermuda, which is also going to aid our flow off to the north. Here is our giant low pressure system that is going to be the catalyst for not only Nicole moving out towards the towards New England, but this is also going to be a catalyst for severe weather here across portions of the Central Plains, as well as a blizzard potentially for portions of the upper Midwest into the Northern Plains. So this is going to be something really interesting to kind of watch out for from Wednesday into Thursday. But as this plays out, you see Nicole tries to move north, and then as this trough kind of ejects through, as our low pressure system moves off towards the east, Nicole is going to be nudged off towards the north and east, and it might even try to merge here with this other low pressure system before another one actually tries to make its escape through and push off that way. So what do I think the impacts are going to be from this system? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather bell models real quickly. Let's try and zoom in a little bit more, if you will. I'll also put the forecast cone up here at the top right-hand part of your screen so you can kind of see what's going on. Excuse me. But we'll pull up the GFS here real quickly, and we'll show you the southeast regions, southeast. Turn that into local time, which is in Eastern Daylight Time. Let's pull up our wind fields here. Surface winds, surface wind, surface wind. We don't want to pull up gusts because gusts kind of overestimate things. Like, gusts can happen, don't get me wrong, but they make things appear a lot worse than it actually is, and it kind of causes a lot more fear. And, you know, I'm not about that. I want to try and give you guys full transparent information with this. So let's kind of take a look at the timings about this. Let's actually move this to the state of Florida, so that way you guys can just see a little bit closer. There we go. So here is our surface winds here. By the time we get to about, I would say even right about now into early morning hours of tomorrow, that's when tropical storm force winds can probably start to surge on inland. You can see a lot of these contours of oranges and even reds start to kind of make its way closer and closer towards Florida. And at the bottom part of your screen, right within there, you can kind of see how fast those winds are in miles per hour. So about, I would say, 20 to 30, maybe even 40 mile per hour winds starting to surge its way closer and closer towards the coastline as we get closer and closer towards Wednesday afternoon and Wednesday evening. All right, Wednesday evening and Wednesday night, that's when we could potentially see a landfall here in the southern portions of Florida. At the same time, you also notice that from areas of South Carolina near Charlestown, or Charleston, I should say, not Charlestown. I'm mixing up my states because West Virginia, I live near a city called Charlestown, and it also has the state capital of Charleston. So there you go. Charleston, South Carolina, all the way down towards Savannah, towards the Space Coast, and then down towards Palm Beach and even Miami. You notice you have a lot of these oranges and even reds in some of these spots, which could indicate some of your tropical storm force winds. And that is going to be relatively consistent before it finally makes landfall sometime around midnight. That's what the GFS says, or at least maybe even a little bit earlier than that. A little bit earlier, probably I would say 10 to 11 at around that time. So that'll be something interesting to note as this continues to get closer and closer towards Florida. Now, once it does make landfall, you see there are some higher amounts of sustained wind gusts towards the actual eye of the system. So if you're near Lake Okeechobee, you are going to be impacted by this system more than likely. I'll actually go back in time here so you can see this thing actually goes right over Lake Okeechobee. And so anywhere to the north, anywhere to the south, east, west, you're going to get a lot of strong winds, especially on the northern side of Okeechobee as the eye passes through. That backside of the wind could definitely be really, really interesting with that. And then on the other hand, you notice your very strong winds on the western side of the peninsula, very strong winds on the eastern side, and you can kind of attribute to some of that storm surge here what is potentially possible with this storm. So as this continues to move about, this finally makes it offshore and impacts Tampa Bay area sometime around Thursday morning, and actually goes off, tries to intensify according to the GFS. I kind of find that a little hard to believe, but you know, I've seen weirder stuff, and areas over near Apalachicola could potentially be impacted, and a new landfall is possible on Thursday night. Probably Thursday night is when you can anticipate that. Finally, as it moves off, it'll start to curl off towards the north and east, and you can see some localized gusts over here in southern Georgia of more than likely 30 to 40 miles per hour. So that'll be something to kind of watch out for with that. Precipitation, the overall precipitation over, I would say, let's go 120 hours here. You see a lot of these dark reds area indicate about 2 to 4 inches of rainfall. Maybe even higher than that, up to 5 inches possible. So that would be something to note here. And then, of course, as you get closer and closer towards the deep south over here, you also notice that there is 2 to 4 inches of rainfall over there as well. Now, just because it says 2 to 4 inches of rainfall doesn't mean that it can't be higher. As a matter of fact, I'm expecting some of these areas to have a lot more rain, not entirely up to the threshold of like a foot, but probably about 6 inches at most in some spots. And I do believe that there could be some localized flooding due to the fact that runoff is definitely possible in some low-lying areas like creeks and streams, maybe even rivers and stuff like that. So do not be surprised if there is some localized flooding. I'm not expecting this to be catastrophic flooding by any stretch of the imagination. But I do believe there is going to be some localized flooding that could close some roads and make travel hazardous. So if there's any flash floods, if you see any floods in general, please turn around, don't drown, don't drive in the flooded roadways, because the flooded roadways actually appear a lot shallower than they actually are. And that's how you see people get trapped on the news networks. You see all the rescues from helicopters and stuff like that. That's the reason, because they thought that they could drive through it and they really couldn't. So that's just one thing to make a note of as we continue to, as we close up talks about Nicole. Now, one thing that I do want to mention here on the other hand, because we don't just have tropical weather, we also have severe weather. And we'll pull this up here real quickly. We'll go to the Storm Prediction Center. And you notice on Thursday here, we actually have a slight risk for severe weather. Look at this. We have a 1 out of 5 in the severe weather scale here in the dark green, and then a 2 out of 5 in the severe weather scale here in the yellow. And this could include areas like Kansas City, Des Moines, Overland Park, as well as Topeka, and the Rochester areas down in the southeastern portions of Minnesota. So that would be definitely something to watch out for as this continues to move on through. This is not going to be as bad as the past tornadic event over here in portions of Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana. I do not anticipate that whatsoever. So For those of you who might be scared that might be the case, just fear not. Fear not. I don't think so, and you'll see here why within some of the models. For tomorrow, the only real area for severe weather that is possible is really along the coast of Florida. There is a localized area for tornadic potential over there, so I would really watch out for that. But other than that, not really too concerned on that front. Let's take a look at the North American model, see what we can kind of get into in regards to how this event really is going to come about. Once again, as I've mentioned before, the time is above me in Eastern. So now as we shift over here now, you can see we do have a new trough that is going to start to build off the coast of California. You can see there's also a lot of wind shear here at the 500 millibar level, which is the upper level wind shear that is going to kind of really fuel a lot of these showers and thunderstorms across portions of the central United States. You also notice that we do have our high pressure system over here across portions of the deep south. So everything is kind of all right with the world in regards to what we've been talking about so far. Now, as we continue to move across with this system, you notice our trough now starts to kind of become a little bit more negatively tilted right within here. A lot of our isobars are very much so tilted, but it is also very, very, very north oriented. And what I mean by that is usually when you have a negatively tilted trough that's favorable for tornadoes, you kind of want it to be tilted more towards more from the southeast to the north and west. This is more tilted from east to west, and this is more favorable for kind of upscale growth storms that kind of go from tornadic producers to immediately wind producers, more of a very strong damaging wind threat. And these storms are going to also be moving very, very fast as well. And so you can see as this continues to move about, this low pressure system actually intensifies with this wind shear, and you have some very nice flow here of about 70 to 80, maybe even 100 knots of wind shear here. We actually have 105 down at the bottom right-hand portion of the graphic. 105 knot wind shear here at the 500 millibar level across portions of the upper Midwest. Now, just because it has 105 knot winds here with our wind shear does not mean that that will actually dictate the severe weather, because the severe weather may not even be in the 105 knot wind shear area. It might actually be out in front of it. So that'll be something to note here. But let's take a look at what our ingredients are for this event. We'll take a look at our dew points here on Thursday, and let's actually zoom in here so that you guys can kind of see a little bit better what's going on. So we do have some very interesting dew point amounts. I did say that if you have 60-degree dew points or above, it is somewhat favorable for severe weather, and it is. We do indeed have those dew point levels that are anticipated throughout much of the central plains into the upper Midwest. That'll kind of be absorbed by these thunderstorms, and as quickly as the dew points form, let's actually retreat in time. You can see very warm, very moist here for Wednesday, actually from Tuesday into Wednesday here this evening. As quickly as they move off to the north, they also begin to disintegrate rather quickly due to the fact that those storms kind of need that moisture in order to sustain. With that, we also have some very dry dew points, some very cold dew points that are going to be coming in right behind that. You notice single-digit dew points across the board, and if we also pair that to the surface temperatures here in Fahrenheit, we also have below freezing temperatures here from this light blue and north, which is basically the burgundy, the purple colors, and then once you start to get towards the white and green, that is your below freezing temperature line right within there. And some of that could be aided with some winter weather, which we will talk about here in a second. What we do want to also mention here is how much energy there is in the atmosphere within this system. And there isn't too much, but there is enough for thunderstorms to kind of sustain here. So on Wednesday, you notice we do have about 1,000 to even 1,500 joules per kilogram of CAPE, specifically down in towards the portion of southeastern New Mexico and extreme western Texas. That isn't really where we can anticipate a lot of our very strong showers and thunderstorms. It'll be more up here towards the Nebraska and Kansas area here on Wednesday, and that might even not do a whole lot due to the fact that there could be some limiting factors present in the atmosphere. So as we shift off towards Thursday, you can kind of see there's not a whole lot of energy here. Usually, if you want very much so organized severe weather, you need a lot more energy than this. Probably about, I would say, 1,500 to 2,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE, and we can barely scratch over 1,000 in some of these areas here within the main risk. So if I had to guess as to what the main risk for severe weather could be on Thursday, it definitely would have to be some strong damaging winds. Now, as we situate ourselves to the north, this will be our last topic before we get into questions. Let's go ahead and take a look at our disturbance here, our winter maker, more or less, with what we could possibly get with some of our blizzard activity. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. I do want to take a look and see what would be the best way to look at this. Probably just the whole United States. Yeah, probably. So let's take a look at it right now. I do want to mention here real quickly, there are a plethora of winter storm warnings across portions of the Rockies, as well as the Sahara Mountains, or Sierra Mountains, not Sahara. Geez, am I in Africa? Totally. Sierra Mountains across portions of California. If you guys want to take a look at that real quickly, I sure can pull that up. Let me switch this over to Omega satellite. There we go. We'll pull that off towards Omega right here. And you can see all the pink. Actually, you know what? I got a better idea. Watch this. Watch this. National Weather Service hazards. Look at this here. We got this. So this is our full screen. Wow, my face is just going to cover the entire screen. That is unfortunate. I also want to log in so that way I don't have any ads. Yeah, that is wonderful, isn't it? Yeah, I have no clue where that went. You can tell how much I use Pivotal. There it is. Hazards. And then let us just... I guess we just turn off my face cam real quickly. Do that. There you go. You can see all the warnings for Florida as well. But you notice all these areas here in the bright pink. All right, so you have not the hot pink, not this area, and then not the burgundy down here. You notice the pink colors right within these areas right here. This is your winter storm warnings. This is a winter storm watch in the blue, and then your winter storm advisories in the lavender colors. So that would be something to note. A red flag warning is over here for people who are curious with that, and then a freeze warning over here for portions of New Jersey and whatnot. So that's kind of interesting to note. But let's go back over to our weather bell real quickly. Turn back my face. Turn my face on. Here we go. And you notice, once again, all right, we have Nicole down here. We have our low pressure system right here. This low pressure system over here on the western portions of the United States is going to be creating a lot of snow for the Sierra Mountains up there. But otherwise, if you live in California, there's going to be a lot of precipitation around your area. And there's been quite a bit of a drought over there. So hopefully flash flooding isn't going to be too much of a concern. But you do have an excess amount of rainfall that is likely within your area. Once we shift into that, we start to head off towards Wednesday morning, some widespread snow across portions of the Rocky Mountains, as well as into the Cascades, at least on the eastern side of the Cascade Mountains, over towards Idaho and Montana. And then that can start to shift off from Wednesday into Thursday to where we do have some freezing rain and some sleet possible here across portions of northern Minnesota, as well as even into portions of southeastern North Dakota. And then we see a lot of snowfall coming in behind that. Transition from Thursday morning into Thursday afternoon, and the snow becomes quite more vigorous. You can see from Ontario all the way into Quebec, we have a plethora amount of snow, with even more of that coming in behind that into portions of northwestern Minnesota. That will continue to be the case even as it ejects through towards the Ontario and Quebec areas, to where we can finally see those wintry precipitation amounts start to kind of disperse in all sorts of different directions. It's kind of hard to see because it kind of gets cut off right here. But if we go back a few frames, you can see that is kind of exactly the case here and how it disperses into, all sorts of different directions. So let's focus a little bit more further towards the north. Probably not the northern plains. Let's go to the upper Midwest. There's the upper Midwest. That's probably not the best way to go. I wish there was just a north thing. North Central. No, that's not nice. Central? Let's just do United States. It is what it is. We'll figure it out. Let's go over to winter. We'll take a look at our 10-to-1 ratio for snowfall here. And you can see for snowfall, especially across the northern portions of the United States, heading off in towards the Manitoba areas and Ontario, we have a good amount of snowfall here, with some amounts getting in upwards of a foot of snow, maybe even a little bit more than a foot of snow across some of those areas. And once we shift over here to the freezing rain total, freezing rain is a big concern here at some portions of this environment, and probably is one of the more concerning aspects of winter weather. We do have an abundance of freezing rain in the northeastern portions of South Dakota. So maybe an area, I would say, like, I believe that's what Aberdeen, maybe Aberdeen could potentially be impacted within some of those areas. And that might be something to watch out for as this continues to move about. Let's actually zoom in here now towards the north central area. And you can see right there, there's kind of the bullseye for a lot of your freezing rain. Not exactly near Aberdeen or right next to Aberdeen. Aberdeen's like right about here, so maybe about a quarter of an inch of ice. But further north and east of that, that would be over towards the Sisseton area, the Britain area, as well as the Veblen area. There could be a plethora amount of ice for your area. And in particular, near I-29. Interstate 29 could have a very big issue with freezing rain right within that area. So we're just going to have to try and see how much precipitation actually gets within that area, as well as if there could actually be that amount of freezing rain. Sleet's not that big of an issue. Even though there's so much sleet, sleet's not really, as big of an issue as freezing rain. So that's one thing to note. Let's go over to upper Midwest. We'll take a look at the 10-to-1 ratio. It doesn't look like much of the Great Lakes actually gets this impacted, that much impacted by this event, which is kind of interesting. Here's your zoomed in totals with your snowfall. You can see once again about 16 inches of snow is kind of the peak within this. Actually, you can take a look at the bottom right hand side. You can see 18 to almost 19, or not feet. 16 feet would actually be pretty insane, wouldn't it? 16 feet of snow within that area. You can tell that I am not awake at the moment. But there you go. 14 inches, 16 inches, 15 inches, and then at max 18 to 19 inches of snow possible within that area. So definitely something to make a note of. Of course, there's not a whole lot of populace out here, but for the people who do live here, so that'd be like Grand Forks, north of Grand Forks, you guys definitely getting a lot of stuff. A lot of snow. Last but not least, what I want to mention here. Is our wind gusts. Now, in order for it to be a blizzard officially, I believe it has to be, 40 to 45 mile per hour wind gusts within the span of the area. And so if we take a look at that here, take a look at our wind gusts, we do have that. We do have a plethora of wind gusts on the back side here that has 40 to about 45, maybe even almost 50 mile per hour wind gusts within the area. So blizzard-like conditions will be possible over here across portions of South Dakota, North Dakota, and northern Minnesota. All right, so that's pretty much it with the live stream of what I wanted to talk about. Now we're going to kind of open it up to questions. It's been 40 minutes of me talking nonstop. So I'll tell you what, this is so much easier than making a video, and it's a lot easier to communicate with you guys. Although I understand, you know, the benefits of making a YouTube video. But if there's any questions that you guys have, please put them in the chat. How bad will Manatee County get hit by a tropical storm? That is a good question. 35-mile-per-hour winds. Okay, perfect. Turn that off. I don't want that. Go away. Excuse me. So let's copy and paste Manatee County. What's up, Kevin? Nice to see you around. I actually live streamed, what was it? Friday? Greatest short-term memory. Yeah, it was Friday. Big tornado outbreak there. So if you haven't seen that, I highly recommend you actually go look. Because our storm chaser, Matt, I'm not sure if you remember Matt, he caught 3 tornadoes that stream. And I even made it as chapters for you all to actually look and see. Manatee County. All right, so that's south of Tampa Bay. From Nicole in itself. All right, so you're asking about if they are going to be impacted majorly by Nicole. From a rainfall perspective, not entirely. You can take a look at the Weather Prediction Center. Let's actually turn it back towards the Omega satellite so you guys can kind of see this a little bit better. You can see that we do have some rain over near the Tampa Bay area and south of that towards Manatee County, but not too much, to be honest with you. So not too much freshwater rainfall on that front. If we take a look at the storm surge, however, you guys could potentially see a little bit of storm surge here. I do think it's actually possible that this could be a little bit further south, maybe 1 to 3 feet of storm surge, but not entirely too big with that one either. I think your main risk, in all honesty, for you would probably have to be the strong damaging winds associated with Nicole as it moves about. So to kind of really emphasize this, we'll take a look at our wind gusts here with Nicole. And I did say I wasn't really going to use this a whole lot, the wind gusts, but wind gusts are kind of a factor, and it can kind of, that's the things that will blow over your trees. So we'll actually look at wind speed first, sustained winds first, and then our wind gusts afterwards. You see, we do have some sustained wind gusts around your area of about 30 to 40 miles per hour. And then as we get towards Thursday morning is when you guys could probably see about 40 to maybe even 50 mile per hour wind gusts within your area. And then maybe even a little bit of storm surge after that as the eye moves on through. So I do think the center of low pressure is going to move over your area. Will it be super significant? No, but I do think you shouldn't be outside while the center of low pressure system is moving over your area. I also do believe that once this system does pass you, the tornado threat for this general area of Florida will start to increase. So I would be weather aware on Thursday, particularly from the morning all the way through into the evening, of a potential tornado threat for your guys' general vicinity there on Thursday. Let us take a look. Yeah, Nicole is gonna be knocking on your door a little bit, Morgan. It's gonna be kind of interesting. What are we expecting here in southeastern Utah? Storms coming, but how bad? Good question. Let's pull up Utah here real quickly. We'll specifically zoom into the state of Utah and kind of see what we got. We're going to start out with the precipitation here first so that you can kind of get your timings here as this moves about. We'll go over to the North American model, the 3-kilometer version. The 0Z is running at this time, so that's kind of interesting. We'll move over to the Weather Bell models. The time above is in Eastern, so you're going to have to add 2 hours. So because you're in Mountain Time, even though it says 1 p.m. up above, it would actually be 11 a.m. for you guys. So just kind of a disclaimer here for you as we continue to play this out. But you can see the storm will start to kind of move through your area here overnight from Tuesday into Wednesday. A lot of rain will start to be possible within your area. But that's when stuff starts to kind of shift off here in towards the kind of rain, snow. So depending upon your elevation, it could determine as to whether or not you're going to get a lot of snow or you're going to get a lot of rain. Now, how much of which? Well, it's practically supposed to be done by Wednesday night into Thursday. We'll take a look. Excuse me, I'm hiccuping all over the place. Bear with me. Sheesh. How much precipitation? Not too much. You can see you don't have a lot of precipitation to fall within that area, so not a whole lot of rain. Not a whole lot of snow either. We'll take a look at the wintry precipitation here from the 10-to-1 ratio. And unless if you're in the higher elevations, I would say a good consistency basis would be at minimum a dusting, with the exception of some of these white areas here, as you can see. And then at maximum, maybe about 1 to 3 inches of snow. So I don't think it's going to be too bad. I'll actually take a look at the winds, see the wind gusts here for you guys as this passes through. And yeah, it actually could be very windy. Overnight tonight into tomorrow, I do believe it's going to be relatively consistent with our strong damaging winds, our wind gusts here from probably early Wednesday morning, very early Wednesday morning, well below dawn, all the way through until probably the late afternoon into the early evening. That's when stuff will seem to start to calm down throughout your area. So not entirely too bad, but I do think that you guys could go for a nice little spin with that one. Will Houston get anything? Not in particular. I think they should be fine. They're pretty much in the clear from all 3 of these events that I have talked about in the stream, which does include a blizzard. So obviously blizzard won't reach Houston. Severe weather, which obviously severe weather around this time period can get near Houston, but this severe weather is a lot further north toward like Iowa and stuff like that. So not really too impactful for you all. And then Nicole will be way far off towards your east. It'll be hitting Florida and moving up the east coast. So it won't move off towards your area. Let's keep it going here. Is it coming to South Carolina? Yes, it will. Nicole will be heading off towards South Carolina, so definitely something to watch out for. I'll pull up our graphic here for the forecast cone of Nicole. Back to the satellite here. And you can see our forecast cone right here, our cone of uncertainty, which means the center of Nicole can be within any spot of this cone. We don't exactly know where, but even though it has this circle with the S, it doesn't mean that that is where the main area, or that doesn't mean that is where the system actually will be. It just so happens that the S is in the middle of all of that to kind of indicate as that's around the time in which the system could be. So the cone of uncertainty takes this system from a tropical storm to a hurricane on its approach to Florida, goes over land, and then it starts to curl off towards the north and east. And by about 1 a.m. Friday to 1 p.m. Friday, so that would be, I would say around 8 a.m. on Friday, you guys could start to see the effects of Nicole and potentially even a tornado event possible closer towards the coastline as well. So that'd be something to watch out for. But yes, it will. Do I think there is a specific model that is better at playing out frontal events like Thursday? I mean, not in particular. I would stray away from the NAM 3 kilometer, even though I used it, because it seems to favor more of a wind event in any scenario. So even if it's like a tornado scenario with like supercells and stuff like that, it seems to generate a lot more of a straight line wind event from it. It seems to be more of a wind maker. So I would say maybe the wrap model or the HRRR. You can get the wrap model on Pivotal Weather for free if you go over to there. Or you can go over to the College of DuPage meteorology site. You can go over to weather analysis, go to numerical models, and then you can look at the wrap model for that as well. Traveling from Iowa to Portland, Oregon, starting tomorrow via I-90. I-90 goes... yeah, it does. Will you encounter winter weather the whole way or just through South Dakota and Montana? Well, if you're leaving tomorrow, to get to Portland, Oregon on 90. And I just want to reference 94 is right there, and 90 is from Sioux Falls to Rapid City into Wyoming and down over there. So that's interesting. Let's play it out through here. We'll start with our North Central. Let's go North Central. Play it through here. So if you're leaving tomorrow to get there, on Wednesday, the storms really won't start to fire up until about Wednesday night into Thursday. And so it'll really start to impact areas here of South Dakota and Nebraska by the late evening into the overnight hours. That's when things officially start to create your freezing rain and your sleet as well as your heavy snow. So if you can beat that out, you should be fine for the most part. But by any chance, if you can't, then you will be encountering that and then some as you move on through that area. Now, prior to that, let's say you do beat that out, you could see some snow squalls in portions of Wyoming heading off into Montana. So if visibility does decrease, all right, I would pull over to the side of the road and wait it out. I've seen some significant snow squalls, particularly over here where I live in Pennsylvania, and it has just been terrible in some instances to where you can have multiple car pileups, and you wouldn't be able to see them right in front of you because the snow squalls take out your entire visibility, and you can barely even see a car that's one car length in front of you. So if there is a snow squall within your area, if the National Weather Service issues a snow squall warning for your area, or if the visibility drops off significantly, please pull over to the side of the road, or if you are right next to an exit, get off of that exit and wait for a bit until the snow squall actually passes you. So that's kind of my 2 cents for you as you hopefully make a safe trip over to Portland, Oregon, which I've actually been to Oregon before. I've been to Northern Oregon. That was kind of a side trip when I went to Seattle. We went down to Oregon to that Goonies area. I can't remember the name of the town right there. Astoria, that's what it is. We went to Astoria, and yeah, we kind of just went around, messed around over there. So it's pretty nice. Let's take a look. What's the winter storm forecast for Colorado Springs? Colorado Springs, believe it or not, you guys aren't anticipated to get a whole lot. You guys might see a flurry or two, but this event's not really for you, to be completely honest with you. Should be fine. Do you know how bad it'll land in North Carolina from a Hurricane Nicole? I don't think it'll be too bad. I think the tornado risk will probably be the highest risk for you all. That's at least how I see it with this event. But we'll play it here from probably the GFS. There you go. You can see the system moves on through. And by the time we get to Friday morning, that's when the system will really start to move on through your area. Localized tornado threat possible on Friday afternoon to Friday evening, maybe even earlier than that, as long as there's precipitation in the area and it's on the eastern side of the low pressure system, you're probably going to get a localized tornado threat. Otherwise, maybe some gusty winds and some localized rainfall. Not really too much for your area, honestly. Evening, Bushmaster. How do? Yeah, you don't really have to worry too much in Florence, but you will see some activity from Thursday into Friday. So, you have a question for severe weather for the Central Plains in the Midwest. Where do I think the highest chance of severe weather on Thursday is? Believe it or not, I think the Storm Prediction Center is actually doing a pretty good job with their Day 3 convective outlook. I think anywhere along this yellow area is going to see the stuff because it's equally widespread with your strong damaging wind risk. If I had to pinpoint an area, It would probably be on the northern side of the slight risk here, from southern portions of Minnesota down towards like Des Moines. I would say that would probably be the area to watch for some very strong damaging winds on Thursday. Should you be able to fly out of Charlotte, North Carolina Friday morning at 9:15? Depends upon if it's in the morning or if it's in the evening. If it's in the morning, you might have some issues. You might. They could let you out though. They could. Will College Station get anything? Nope, it is unlikely College Station, Texas will get a whole lot. Is it a full hurricane or just a storm? Right now it's a tropical storm. It is forecasted to become a hurricane within the next 12 hours. Maybe even a little bit more, maybe even a little bit less than that. We'll turn this back into a mega satellite. Town's gonna get slapped on Friday because it's coming right towards you. Well, be safe, my friend. Be safe. What are the impacts for New York City? Good question. Very good question. New York City in particular. Let's take a look at the Northeast. There we go. New York City in particular, I do think they can see some very strong wind gusts within their area. From Nicole, you can see if you're along the coastline, about 40 to 50 mile per hour winds is possible here within this area. If we take a look at just the sustained winds, however, probably about 30 to 40 miles per hour at most. If you're along Long Island or in New England, particularly around Cape Cod, you guys could definitely see some very strong damaging winds within your area. Some localized rainfall is possible. I don't anticipate it to be all too likely. I think if there is going to be a lot of rainfall, it will be over here along the Appalachians or the Appalachians, however way you pronounce it. Believe it or not, I pronounce it Appalachians, but I've heard it both ways. So, however way you pronounce it, that is what it is there. And by the way, for the people who are going to try and correct me, listen, I've lived in West Virginia for almost my entire life. You think I would know because I've lived in these said mountains. So, but anyways, definitely some precipitation that can lead to some flash flooding. That is possible, but for New York, not really too much precipitation within your area. So that's kind of the good news with that. You're going to be heading back into Idaho with your husband on Friday or Saturday. Will things be okay to drive back to Idaho? Good question. Let me take a look. Let me take a look. So that'll be northwest. Let me find northwest here. There we go. Let's take a look at this right here. And you said Friday and Saturday. I think you guys should be fine. I don't foresee a whole lot of impacts within your area. Just for reference, I do want to take a look and see if there's any winds. Friday and Saturday. Yeah, no, I don't see a whole lot. So yeah, you should be fine back of Flint. We have a question about severe weather on Thursday. Do I think the Central Plains needs to be concerned? Is there more of the East and the Midwest? Honestly, I think the Central Plains should be fine. I don't think anyone should really be concerned about this event in general either. I think they should be pretty much all right across the board. And I have reached all the questions, believe it or not. I have gotten to all the questions. So if there aren't any other questions, this will be the final 5 minutes here, because we have been on for about an hour. If that's all the questions, then I can get out of your guys' hair. This is kind of what I want to try and do every Tuesday and Thursday. Obviously, Thursdays for me is going to also be a little bit difficult for me to do. So I might not do too much with it. But it'll be kind of interesting to see. If I were to try and stream tomorrow night, it's going to be very difficult because I also have my side job that I have to complete. So, I mean, we're going to have to see. But if I am going to live stream the landfall for Nicole, I'll be able to let you know on my Twitter, so please be sure you follow that. When's the gaming channel? Morgan and I are actually going to fix that up here soon. We've been talking about it. We've been saying, hey, we're going to do it. We're probably going to do it here soon. Do I play Rocket League? No, but I kind of want to try. I've heard it's an interesting game. It's also a rage fest some instances too. But I do want to try it. What is the capital of Peru? Listen. My intellect in regards to the capital cities for different countries is very, very limited. I can tell where other countries are, or at least I would like to say that I have an idea of where other countries are. But, yeah. Oh, by the way, for the people who are looking forward to the gaming channel, it will be slightly censored, but it will only be if we say like so many curse words within like a span of time. If we say, you know, a curse word every, I don't know, minute or something like that, that's not going to get censored. So, profanities are going to be a thing on that gaming channel. So just, you know, consider the following. Can I look at the GFS and see if there's any other storm systems? I can. Easiest way for me to see the GFS, in my honest opinion, is through Tropical Tidbits. And that is exactly what we're going to do. So, let's take a look. Nicole moves on through. Big plume of cold air moves on through. By the way, it's going to be chilly for the next week and a half. So make sure you guys have your coats. Potential weak nor'easter looking thing here. Not this weekend, but the following weekend after. No, this weekend. Interesting. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's a thing. Maybe a nice little, actually potential for some tropical development at the beginning of next week across portions of the Gulf of Mexico and the East Coast, right off the coast of Georgia and South Carolina. So that'll be interesting. Not really too dramatic though with its impacts. It'll just be one of those very weak systems. After that, another area of low pressure to move on through. More cold air. Maybe a tropical system to try and form towards the mid stages of November. But there's just so little moisture out in the tropics by this point that it's not really too much. So. Want to come to my birthday party? I mean, that is, listen. I'm always, you know, always willing to try and do some stuff for people and whatnot. But if it's anytime soon, it could be very difficult for me to do so. So, yeah, donation jar for every swear word. That seems legit. One thing I do want to also do, for all the people who supported the stream here today, by the way, whether it's by subscribing or liking or whatnot, I really do appreciate it. So make sure you guys do so. Can I open a P.O. box for fan mail? I definitely can. That might actually be a bad idea. Thoughts on the Ravens? I love them right now. The Ravens are honestly a scary team. We're injured on offense, so if we can get healthy on that front, we're going to be fine. But on defense, we have the ability to be a top 5 defense in the NFL. With Roquan Smith in and Patrick Queen as our 2 inside linebackers, you add the fact that we had Tyus Bowser back last night, and then we're going to have David Ojabo after the bye week this week. to add to a very fearsome pass rush that has Justin Houston accumulating 3 straight games with over 2 sacks in each of them. Well, I should say with 2 or more sacks in each of them. The Ravens have a very soft schedule coming up. And if we don't win the division, it's a shame, and I will cry. I will definitely cry, because there's no reason why you can't. Is the SPC going to pull a 5% chance for tornadoes? For the tropical system, yes. For Nicole, yes. It will. They will. If that's the case, I might need to go live for that, maybe. I will probably go live regardless for Nicole's landfall. The only issue is that the timing of it is going to be very difficult for me, because I have an obligation tomorrow night for my side job. So it'll be very difficult. But if I can, I will. And I'll let you guys know about that on Twitter. Do we need police back for the donos? That would definitely be a cool idea, but I don't think we can, because a lot of people got upset the last time that happened.
Well, I got the shower, huh?
I've already took a shower. So anyways, that should be pretty much it, no? That's all the questions that we have here so far. And if that's the case, I'm going to skedaddle skadoodle, and I'm going to talk to Morgan. We're going to yell at each other the entire time, you know? But yeah. Take showers open for you. I've already taken a shower. I don't think they knew I actually had a stream tonight. I didn't tell them. But it is what it is. Yeah, I think that'll be pretty much it. So thanks guys so much for watching. Did enjoy it? Please like, subscribe, whatnot. I will say this here real quickly. For people who do want to continue to talk about weather, there's a guy on YouTube here. He will be live streaming. Oh, Reed Timmer's actually streaming right now, so you can go watch Reed Timmer if you want to. I don't know when he started live streaming, but that's a thing. On the other hand, we also have another guy here that's going to be streaming in about an hour, Max Velocity. He will be streaming at 10, so if you want to watch that, feel free to do so. Otherwise, if you want to talk about weather and other stuff, go watch Reed. He usually has some good content there as well. All right, that should be pretty much it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will hopefully see you guys soon. So peace out, everyone.